Everyone has heard of ransomware at this stage. A single device gets compromised, and then the ransomware spreads like wildfire until your entire network and all of your devices are locked down. We like to think that cybercriminals only go after large businesses, but the truth is that every business, no matter how small, is at risk of a ransomware attack. But how can we defend against this if our budget is limited? I'm going to show you how to take the router provided by your ISP, your internet service provider, and use that to compartmentalize your network. This reduces drastically the risk of a single device being compromised, putting your whole business at risk. I'm going to walk you through some basic terminology and the steps you can take to grow from this to this, then analyze that network and then compartmentalize it into this to provide massive gains with no capital outlay. Our starting point is just after your internet service provider, or ISP, has finished installing your broadband. The box they leave behind, they often call that a modem, but we'll call it a router because that better describes what the device does. Now, an internet router can have many functions, most of which we won't explore right now. We're going to keep it at a really high level. The router provided by your ISP is a multi-function device. The first and probably most important function that it has is basic firewall features. The firewall protects your local network, or the devices you connect to the router, from the internet. The router also allows you to connect wired or Ethernet connections if you want a more stable connection. But probably the most important feature is that of a Wi-Fi router. That allows you to wirelessly connect your laptop, smartphones and other devices to the router. The internet router has a primary WAN interface and multiple LAN interfaces. The WAN interface, or Wide Area Network Interface, is the internet-facing side. We'll regard this as the Wild West. This is the dangerous place not yet protected by your firewall. You never want to be directly connected to the internet. The LAN side, or local area network, is the wired and wireless connectivity that you have inside your network. This side is largely protected from threats from the internet. But as we'll see later on, that protection only goes so far. So let's build out the local area network for our business. At this stage, we can get most of our work done with a printer, a laptop and our smartphone. The solid lines here are wired connections and the dotted lines are wireless or Wi-Fi connections. The network grows in line with the business. We need a new PC at reception and another laptop which will connect via Wi-Fi. Although there are only 3 computers on this network, there's no central place for files to be stored or backed up, so you decide to get a file server. The last device we'll add is an internet-connected video camera, which gets its power over Ethernet. The firewall provides all of these devices basic protection from direct attack over the internet. But modern cybercriminals use much more sophisticated attacks. Unmanaged network devices are easily compromised, and as users we can be easily fooled into downloading malware. It's a fairly safe bet that at least one of these devices will fall prey to ransomware over its lifetime. With our current network setup, the firewall can't protect the rest of your devices. The fox is now inside the hen house. The rest of your devices will be compromised and your entire business held to ransom. Wow, that got dark really quickly. But the good news is there's some simple and powerful steps that we can take to drastically increase the security of this network. The fundamental challenge here is one of trust. In our efforts to protect our network from the internet, we've structured a network so that all of the devices inside our network trust each other. Instead, we're going to create multiple levels of trust called zones. Think of this like watertight compartments in a submarine. There's a sentry posted at each hatch with a list of who's allowed to enter and exit each compartment. The access lists for these zones are configured as firewall rules. We'll start by identifying the most important asset of this network, the crown jewels as it were. We know that ransomware is the biggest threat to our network, and so the biggest risk we face is having ransomware lock up all of our data to the point where we can't run our business. So what do you think is the most important device on this network? Yep, it's the file server. We're going to create the green zone on the firewall and then move the file server there. We're going to configure the firewall so that only the managed devices, the 2 laptops and the PC, are allowed to connect to and access the data on that server. You can use the firewall to protect key devices, as we've just done, but you can also use it to ring-fence devices that you just don't trust. We're going to create the red zone for this reason. Predictably, the internet camera will be moved to this zone, but you might be surprised to see the printer go there too. These devices are notoriously insecure and present the greatest insider threat to your network. They should never share the same network zone as your managed devices. We'll configure the firewall to stop these red zone devices from starting a conversation with any other device on the network, but other devices will be allowed to connect to them. That's as far as we'll bring it for now. We've segmented the network, creating a green zone to restrict access to our file server, and we've also created the red zone to ring fence the devices which we just can't trust and protect the rest of our network from those devices. There's lots more to do here, but now we've built a strong foundation. And most importantly, we've done this by using our existing assets, the router supplied by the vendor, and used it to provide much more security than we would ordinarily have.